Before we look at third-party plugins for particle simulations, it's important to note that After Effects has a few built-in particle effects at your disposal, and this might be exactly what you're looking for. Let's take a look at what they have to offer.
So before we go diving into the world of third-party particle-based effects, I think it's important to look what's under the hood of After Effects. Number one, you can use these for free with your Creative Cloud subscription. Number two, I think it's important to know that if you ever have to deliver a After Effects project file to someone else, you're guaranteed that as long as they have After Effects installed on their system, they don't have to go looking for a third-party effect. It's a great way also to start off with learning particle systems. So with all of these things at your fingertips, let's dive in and take a look at our composition 0201 and get familiar with some of the built-in particle-based systems directly within After Effects. So I have a solid here in this composition. It's currently turned off. Let's turn it on so that we can take a look at it. And we're going to go over to our effects and presets. And under the simulation category, we'll find most of our particle built-in effects. And what we're going to take a look for is Particle World. Once we find Particle World, let's select it and apply it to the solid inside our composition. And we can get familiar with what this particle system does. So if you're seeing a particle system for the first time, this might look a little bit strange, but rest assured, everything is all right. I'm going to hit Shift ? On my computer just to fit my composition window to the existing frame. And as I move through this composition, just notice that a bunch of these kind of circular shapes are being born from a particular location, and at a certain time within the composition, they die. So particles essentially live and die either from a point or a shape or something that we designate. And if you have a grasp on this, we can start to customize our particle system to do some pretty amazing things. So as I play through this, you can see the on-screen controls that appear in the composition window, and it's just a great idea to turn them off. So I'm going to head over to my grid and guides section and turn off the majority of these on-screen controls. This is just a great idea so we can just focus on the particle system at hand and the random chaos that's in front of us. So first off, let's take a look at this value called producer. Producer is where these particles are being born from. Right now, the X, Y, and Z value are set to 0. Let me increase the X value and show you that all of these particles are now being born on a line. And that is because we spread it out in X space. So there are some other forces at play on our particle system. And to get control of these, we're going to head down to the physics section. Under the physics section, we have both velocity as well as gravity. And if we don't want these particles to move away from this line, we simply zero out these two properties. So let me make a 0 for velocity. You can see now that these particles fall straight down. And now let me 0 out the gravity. And now they're just being populated on this line, not being projected downward. Now you can see all these particles being born on a line, but they're not moving because there's no physics interacting with them, which keeps them situated on this line. So this is your particle system. In fact, this is the majority of particle systems that you'll see even with third-party plugins. Number one, they're born from some type of point or shape that's set up. They are spewed out into the atmosphere based on velocity and physics properties, and then they die. So let's control our particle system. I'm going to go back to the radius and increase it to make the size of this item a little bit bigger. And then I'm going down to the velocity properties and increase that a bit so they start to spew outward. So we've got a couple different options in terms of how these particles go out. So we've got a directional axis. Alternatively, we could choose a cone axis, or we could choose another preset down here to have a different physical simulation. So besides having control of how these particles are projected in front of you, we have control over what particles are being created. So right now, lines are being projected out into space. I can choose a star or even a spear. Finally, let's actually select bubble. And the best part about these bubble particles is that we can actually have them interact with other objects within this plugin. So let's head down to the physics section
And specifically, I want to look at the floor. Let's increase the floor's Y dimension just to raise it a little bit. So these bubbles actually land on that floor. In order to see this, let's also increase the gravity amount. I'll also bring down the velocity quite a bit. And the minute I choose the floor action to be something like glue, you can see these particles starting to be glued to the floor. The particles fading out are due to the longevity of how long they live for. So if I head up to the longevity section and increase it, you'll see that these particles, or more particles, are being glued to the floor before they fade out. So besides these preset particles that are being born along a line or a shape that we define, so besides these bubbles, we can actually also reference our own layers. I want to reference this shape layer by choosing a textured square. The shape layer is turned off in my project right now. And for us to reference it, I'm going to go down to texture layer, and choose that motorcycle shape layer. And you can see that it's turned off in my chapter 2.1 composition. They're really small in size right now, but they have varying colors, both a birth color and a death color. You can see the yellow and the red. And just to see this a lot better, I'm just going to bring up the birth size of all of these motorcycles. And you'll see that these motorcycles are reacting the same way that the particles before them acted. So here are those particles being born, those motorcycles, and of course you can play around with the size variation and other elements to customize this exactly how you see fit. But as you can see, we have a ton of control with a built-in particle system within After Effects without having to jump into third-party plugins right away. So take some time just to play with this particle world simulation to see what you can do and see some of the differences of this mixed with other third-party plugins that you download the trials for.